Good evening. I'm the Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons, Senior Minister here at All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church. Together with my colleagues, the Reverend Aaron Dyka Holly, our second minister with a special focus on youth and young adults, and our music director, Anthony Edwards, and the members of our choir, we are pleased to welcome you to our special Music Sunday follow-up performance of Tyler Suite. Aaron, can you tell us what makes this piece particularly relevant for the teens and young adults in our community?
The pervasiveness of the internet and cyberbullying affects us all, especially young people on the threshold of life, like Tyler. It is deeply important for them to hear the message that responsible people consider the violation of an individual's privacy or dignity and public humiliation online to be cruel and unethical behavior that can have tragic consequences.
Indeed, some stories demand to be told and to be received into our collective memory, lest we become something less than human in our commitment and compassion toward one another. We hope that our community covenant principle of respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person would convey that same message as well. Anthony, why is this performance such a powerful way of remembering Tyler and communicating a message arising from his death?
We know that music is a fundamental dimension of the life of the Spirit, a way of expressing sorrow and hope for change. Tyler himself was a musician, and musicians who were touched by Tyler's story and by his death chose to use their art to share a message of compassion with the world. Our choir is honored to give voice to that message tonight and welcome Tyler's mother, Jane Clementi, to our community.
Welcome, Ms. Clementi, and everyone here tonight, as well as those joining us online. We begin by kindling this chalice flame, symbol of our covenant community of memory and promise, as we seek to help one another live with greater human dignity and integrity in a shared search for truth and meaning. May the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment to a better world illuminate this hour that we spend together this evening and abide with each of us in the living of all our days to come.
I'd like to begin by taking a moment to thank those who helped make this weekend and our series on cyberbullying and youth suicide prevention possible. Thank you to Alex Westerfelt, Joe Robertson, and Carolyn McDonald. These fantastic folks spent hours and hours on Zoom and in meetings helping to keep me in line. And they also did much of the heavy lifting for the Forum series. I appreciate their dedication seeing this through. Thank you. Special thanks to the Friends of Forum for their generous financial support for the series and for bringing in our special guest, Jane Clementi, this weekend. And thank you to the All Souls Choir for working so hard since the beginning of January. They've been working on Tyler's Suite to bring this to us this weekend. Our own Shanna Jones, Tom Lancaster, and Darrington Clark are featured today in Tyler Suite as soloists. And we have guests with us, Robert Gibby Brand and Trevor Tolke and Anne-Marie Brown on violin, and they are all featured soloists today. Please help me welcome these guests. This weekend is not only the culmination of our series, but also the celebration of music in the life of our congregation. This year's music celebration also marks the first time in 3 years the choir and I have been able to perform a large choral work for you as a congregation. In the past, we have used this platform to not only bring light to the importance of music in the lives of our congregation and in our lives, but to highlight in the issues and important topics in the world today, such as immigration, breast cancer, and Holocaust remembrance. We shine that light today on the youth suicide epidemic by celebrating the life of Tyler Clementi. The Tyler Clementi Foundation and Tyler's mother, Jane, works to end online and offline bullying in schools, workplaces, and faith communities to honor the legacy of Tyler. Tonight, we are pleased to have our good friend, Alex Westerfelt, here to host a conversation about cyberbullying and youth suicide prevention with Tyler's mother, Jane. Thank you for being here, Jane, and thank you for sharing your son's story with us. Please help me welcome Jane and Alex.
This was a sad day at Rutgers University in New Jersey.
Authorities have now identified the body of Tyler Clementi.
A quiet freshman at Rutgers University, a talented violinist, took his own life
after a sexual encounter with another man was secretly streamed online.
By all accounts, Tyler Clementi was a good-natured soul and mostly kept to himself.
2 witnesses saw Clementi jump off the towering George.
18-year-old will join a disturbing growing trend of young students across the country who are cyberbullied to the point of collapse.
One of the issues that I would ask you probably to expand on is there was a firestorm, obviously, of media at that point. And even President Obama, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton weighed in on it, a number of celebrities. And it got cast under a number of issues. And one of those issues was that this was a terrible way to out someone. But it wasn't really an outing in some respects, was it?
Not completely an outing, because Tyler had started the process, although I do think coming out is a continual, ongoing process. It's not a one and done time in someone's life. But he wasn't out to everyone. He certainly wasn't, he was starting to embrace his sexual orientation. He started to go to the LGBTQ center at Rutgers, not a center, but it was a group that met bi-weekly or weekly, and he went with a few other young men on his dorm floor from the other side, and I wouldn't have known that except my older son and I went to speak at Johnson & Johnson, and this young man came up and said, I knew Tyler at Rutgers, and we had not met anyone that said that to us. And this was like 5 years after he had died, so that was significant. But yes, he was starting to, but it was, I think, more personally in my head, more the humiliation of just having a sexual act shared. Even at my older age, I would never want someone to invade in that space, so I think it was part of the process. Yeah, so Tyler had come out to myself, and then I added him to my husband, so then Tyler and my husband had a conversation just of support, actually. And then after Tyler passed, I was told by my older son that they had come out to each other. So my older son, James, is also gay, and they had come out to each other, and I didn't know that. They had done that in July, according to James. And James was not out to many people. He was out to Tyler and maybe 1 or 2 friends, but not to us, which was another interesting story. I have lots of stories. But Tyler and I used to go for a walk in the evening when it got cooler, and several of those walks was my processing, like, when is James going to come out? Because I was making assumptions that he was probably gay. So I fall into the camp that I can relate to parents who are waiting for their child, and I also can relate to parents who are surprised by their child, because I will admit I was surprised when Tyler came out to me. I did not expect that. That was not, it would have been maybe during those conversations that he would have come out, so he never did, and some people say, well, he did this or he did that, and that's a red flag, and I'm like, a red flag, people are people, I did not, I was surprised.
So the don't ask, don't tell idea, how does that play in, given your experiences? You shouldn't have asked either one of your sons, they shouldn't have told you.
Well, supposedly, it's not good to push someone beyond their ability, but sometimes you need assistance, I do believe. So certainly having healthy conversations. And also in 2010, many celebrities were not out. There were not many characters in plays or movies or sitcoms, so to speak. So there weren't many to have conversations around, oh, look at that character and look at that and see how they're supported or not supported and have those healthy conversations. So there weren't, but I would definitely strongly encourage that if that's the case. And sometimes you do need to push, because James came out because we needed to push him out, because the first interview that we did was for People magazine, and Nikki Egan in November of 2011 sat down with us for hours. I guess we didn't do a good job of answering her questions, but and in that process, she talked about James and asked us about James's sexual orientation. And I was a little taken aback, because I was like, how do you know this? And she said, well, I read all the testimony because there was a criminal trial. Everyone was questioned by the prosecution, including our family, and James talked about his sexual orientation in his interview. So she was surprised that no one else had picked up on it and written about it. And she did say that she said, why don't you go home and talk to him, and then let me know if it's okay to publish it. I will not publish it if it's not okay with him. So I give her and all the other journalists a lot of kudos for not outing James. So that's why, again, I didn't like all the media, because I'm just not a public person, but I can't hold them in a negative light, because they really kept James safe, and I was grateful for that. So we went home, Joe and I, and we were all together, because everyone wanted to know how it went. My older son, James, and my middle son, Brian. And then I was like, so don't you want to tell us something, James? And he's like, no, I don't. And eventually, after 2 or 3 asks, I was like, well, Nikki asked us about your sexual orientation, and she wants to know if it's okay to publish it. And he got very flustered and upset, and I thought, oh no, not good. He left the room, but he came back within like 5 minutes or less. And he was like, yes, she can publish it. And from there, he hasn't looked back, and he's been very happy. And because of that, he got an internship with Out Magazine, because they really wanted to publish something by James. That's really the goal of an internship for that one. And then because he published that article in Out Magazine, Stephen Schwartz read it and picked up on it, and we have a beautiful piece in this song cycle that was inspired by James's writings.
So in the words that Tyler wrote and that he left, he had a strong sense of shame and humiliation after the broadcast of the encounter.
A little, but I did find writings of his that I recently only went through about 2-3 years ago. There weren't many points that he documented, but this was even pre that event. And he had lots of anger, lots of frustration, lots of shame.
And I guess the reason I bring that up is what you had mentioned once before was, when you've spoken around the country about this, people frequently come up to you and they say, oh, a very similar thing happened to me. And you said, in many instances, it was not at all a similar thing, but there was a common theme.
Yes, there was usually the common theme of shame, being humiliated by someone, and also the common theme of being at the edge of life and death. So there are those common themes, but the shame, and maybe I was picking up on those themes of shame because I was dealing with my own shame. Because, and I've learned that oftentimes when there are surviving family members from a suicide, there is a great deal of shame as you confront the what ifs and the could haves and the should haves. And as a parent, as a mother, I think the one charge you're given is to keep your children safe. And when you fail that and have a child not want to share the deepest, darkest issues within them because, and that causes them to make a decision, as Tyler's, a permanent decision to a temporary situation that you would have loved to have jumped in and taken care of, there's a lot of shame. And not only did I know it and my personal friends knew it, but guess what? The world knew it.
Exactly, yes. And you had your grief compounded by that shame, right? So
I
you
would
were
imagine.
battling both.
I guess as I went through the process, yes, probably. Initially, it was just pain of loss and emptiness of loss.
And I heard someone ask you how you got through it, and I think your response is, you don't ever get over it.
You don't get over it, but you can get through it because you're still here today. So you learn to deal with it, I suppose, or by healthy outlets. Personally, for me, I journaled a lot. I have tons of journals that are there in a box somewhere, hidden away. Not hidden, but I don't want to look at them, so they are in the closet. Good place for things like that you don't want to look at. I also felt God's presence, and I reverted into my faith at that point. So I do think prayer helped, meditation helped. And physical exercise, walking. People would come and walk me. You know, let's go for a walk. I felt like a dog. Let's go for a walk. I was like, okay. Because I do like to walk, or I did like to walk. I do like to walk now. I wasn't obviously doing anything then. And then the biggest help I think that anyone could have is good mental health, a therapist. And I was given and granted that. That was a very big gift that I was given. Someone was kind of in my sphere that I did not know was there. And she volunteered her services. I still talk to her now. And then, not as often as I did then, but yes.
So when you raise the issue of faith, which is obviously important to you, your family was actively engaged with the church, and the church's response in this situation looked like what?
So I was actively involved in a faith community. Joe, not so much, but sort of a little, because his mom had moved in with us because she had Alzheimer's, and she wasn't of that faith, but it didn't matter. She was in a church with people around her, and at that point in her life, that's all that mattered to her. And the church that I was in did come beside us and did love our family with meals and coming to walk me and cards and texts and responding to my texts. They were a very loving, supportive family. Unfortunately, they really couldn't love my family, all of my family, and the new friends that I was acquiring as the world came in and poured on their love and support and had an outpouring of love from many people within the community I lived in of Ridgewood, northern New Jersey, as well as the LGBTQ community that came and supported us immensely during that time. Many groups within the LGBTQ community, like say Point Foundation, they came, they made a scholarship. Point Foundation is an organization that gives scholarships to LGBT youth, undergraduate as well as now graduate, who, especially if they don't have the support or funds from family because they've been estranged from family. And the other group was the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, who reached out to with an idea of continuing to have his legacies through song and song cycle. And it was an intriguing idea, but an idea that was too big for my head as well. And they had lots of ideas, and they really didn't know where they were going. But as they went forward, they kept us informed. And so we were moved along in that. So the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus partnered with 6 other gala choruses, and they partnered with Stephen Schwartz, who partnered with several other of his friends, and 11 composers came together to create Tyler's Suite, which was a wonderful gift to our family to help us continue Tyler's legacy and to inspire hope. So I do hope you hear the hope in here. Hope on hope. My desire is for you to hear hope. It's my tug at your heart, but that we also wanted it to have an impact so that it could create change. And because I do believe change is what was needed. We couldn't change Tyler's actions, but we could certainly make sure that someone else, like Tyler's roommate, would understand that setting up a camera in the privacy of someone's dorm room is unacceptable behavior. And moving those conversations forward, as well as some of the other conversations that we want to instill change within school systems and such.
So one of the thrusts of the foundation is to intervene in bullying situations, correct? Could you talk about that in a concrete way, an example where somebody might observe bullying and how they can intervene? Because I know when I've talked with people about that idea, there's this fear of that's going to get turned on me if I try to intervene.
Yes, and that is one of the main reasons why someone will not intervene, because they don't want to become the target of aggressive behavior. But we really have found, and based on research, what we found initially, because what we were so surprised at was how so many people had seen what had happened to Tyler, and no one did anything. No one said anything to him, to our knowledge. No one interrupted it. No one reported it. No one knew anything other than the trail of emails that Tyler sent to try to change his room. That didn't happen. And no one, to our knowledge, reached out to Tyler. We couldn't find anything. No one has surfaced and said, oh, I knew what was happening and I talked with him. That hasn't surfaced. So that's why we were like, what is the discord here? And we found research that showed that if someone intervenes within the first 5 minutes of a bullying situation, it will stop with it. Or once someone intervenes, it will stop within 1 minute of that intervention,
And the
interruption.
The intervening doesn't have to be a confrontation of the bully.
Right, because I'm non-confrontational, so I needed ways that I could possibly be an upstander. So certainly if you felt safe in a situation, somebody should interrupt the situation. Sometimes it's as simple as calling out. Sometimes people are just thinking they're funny. It's just sarcasm. And calling it out and saying, no, it's not funny to use racial slurs. It's not funny to use homophobic slurs. And if that doesn't stop the behavior, or if you still don't feel comfortable, because we never want it to escalate, we don't believe force or violence is the answer. We've seen polls, and sometimes males tend to think that's the answer. Females tend not to. Educators absolutely do not think it is, so it's interesting how that works. But there's also possibility of coming beside the person being targeted and walking them away, or just starting a conversation with them to show that they're not alone. And sometimes there's force, in numbers. If there's 2 or 3 people to come around the person that's being targeted, then maybe the aggressor will get the hint and walk away and might not continue. And most importantly, when we're talking to youth, it's about reporting to a trusted adult. And in the case that you don't want it to come back at you, hopefully the whole culture of the school or the environment where it's happening is one of upstanders, active upstanders, and they would not put it back on the person who has reported it. But we also need to know that it's not tattletaling. If you want if you're thinking about someone's well-being. I spoke at a pretty wealthy day school in Connecticut and talking about this, and 4 people in the audience, or the students, they were in the very young adult or older youth age, because I think they had that extra gap year people there, and they were 17, 18 years old, and they raised their hands to share their stories of how they had a plan. They had suicidal ideation, and they had a plan. And one young woman confided in her best friend, you know, I want to give you this to take care of it, and I guess shared a little more about her plan, and made her friend promise not to tell anyone. This young woman is here to share this story because she's so grateful that her friend did not honor her promise to her, and actually went right home and told her mom, and her mom then called up the other young woman's mom, and this woman got the help she needed. They brought her to a treatment right away, to an emergency room for evaluation right away, and she's very grateful now. Wasn't so happy at the time, but very grateful now to look back. Because oftentimes if you can just get past that moment of trauma or disappointment or frustration, you can deal with it, and you can learn how to deal with more difficult situations in the future. You create a tool belt, so to speak, which is why I think there needs to be more social emotional learning in schools, so that youth know how to deal with frustration and anger and disappointment, because oftentimes it's hurt people who hurt other people. So we want to give them the tools to deal with their own emotions.
And I know you and the foundation have been called upon numerous times to go into schools, into workplaces, and provide the training around this issue. But what you said earlier on Sunday that I thought was valuable was the training of the ancillary people who often aren't part of those diversity initiatives.
Yes. It's important to include all staff members from schools, like the lunchroom aide and the bus driver, because they're the ones actually that are witnessing to these behaviors. And it's not only about how to deal with the crisis, so education for all staff members, so that they can see, why am I being silent when I hear the F word being called on this child? It's because I think maybe it's appropriate, and it's not appropriate. So we have to make sure people understand that. And we all have biases, and we all have prejudices within us, but we have to make sure we understand them, and that we understand not to allow them to govern how we teach, or how, you know, the teachers in the school. Because research after research shows, I don't know, Family Acceptance Project with Caitlin Ryan, and the recent research that just came out for Trevor Project shows that if there's, you know, that huge difference can make on an LGBTQ plus student to have one supportive adult in their sphere. So we have to make sure those adults are in the schools.
And you have the ambassador program. Do you want to mention
We do.
that?
We have the youth ambassador program for, we just lowered it to middle school through high school, and we give those youth tools in creating change. So it is a virtual group. It always was virtual, even pre-pandemic, because we want people from all over the country, and we've had people from all over the country participate. And that's what's so wonderful. So they meet monthly. Now they meet, well, 3 times a month, 2 times as a group, and once on a one-on-one, because the whole goal is to do like some kind of a capstone project. So some type of a project within their sphere, whether it's at their school, or if it's on social media, or if it's at their taekwondo. Someone did something about being an upstander for their dojang in New York, so I kind of actually went and helped him do that. So that was kind of interesting, because I don't know, remember the leader's title, but his whole thing is about having your own inner strength so that you don't have to show your outer strength. Yeah, so.
There are other questions I could ask, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the different pieces of the suite that we're going to hear.
Yeah, so this is all very personal to Tyler. When we decided to move forward, the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus and Stephen Schwartz hired a librettist, Pamela Stewart, and she came and visited with our family in Ridgewood, in our old home. She spent some time with my older son the day before, and then the next day she came to us, and we were all together around the table, Brian, James, Joe, and myself, and we shared stories about Tyler. We spoke with her individually. My husband gave her a poem that he had written. So the song Just a Boy, the father's voice, was a poem that my husband had written, actually, after Tyler's passing. And it was kind of very loose when she met with us. They kind of wanted a whimsical piece to show Tyler's good humor. And so we did share a lot about his unicycle, because when he was in middle school, he saw that unicycle in the window of the store downtown, and he really, really wanted it. And I was like, oh, it's so hard to ride a unicycle. I had a friend, a neighbor, when I was young. It's really tough to ride a unicycle. But he did master it. He did get it because he's persistent. And persistence is usually a good thing, but unfortunately not when you're impulsive and young and are confronted with a traumatic issue. But he was persistent. He got the unicycle. And Pam left with all this information, but she wasn't really sure if she was going to include it in the piece. And then there she was waiting for the bus to take her back to LaGuardia, and down the avenue rode somebody on a unicycle. And she just felt like someone tapping her on the shoulder saying, you've got to include that unicycle. And so that's a piece. And in that piece, there's a verse about the string, help me out here, the thread, and yeah, and those three components.
Running through the fiddle, wheel, and me.
Fiddle, wheel, and me. Okay. And that was to represent the three sons, James, Brian, and Tyler. Because initially there was no brother song, because that was added after Stephen said, no, it's just not complete, and he read the other thing. So then that was in there. And also because of our Christian tradition, and Pam was Christian also, and so it was also the Trinity also representative in that song. Let's see, I have the list because I'm drawing a blank. Originally, too, the only song with the violin was the meditation piece. That was going to be the song that represented Tyler. And the violin represents Tyler throughout the music. So then it was decided that it should be in every movement. I think every movement has the violin, right? Yeah. So then they added Tyler to all of the pieces. And like I said, it started out as 4 movements. It is now 9 movements. It's finished. It's at 9 movements. But when it premiered, it was only 8 movements. So they added Stephen Schwartz and Tim Seelig, who was the conductor at the time of San Francisco, thought it wasn't complete because by the time it premiered, there had been a trial, and there had been a lot of national attention, and they wanted to include all that national conversation. So they added the Tyler story. And there is a piece of my voice in there too, and it was I Love You More. And it was something that Tyler and I did when he was very young, from a very young age. He used to say he loved me, and I said, no, I love you more. And he would say, no, I love you to the moon. And then I would say, no, I love you to the moon and back. And we'd go on and on and on. And then eventually it shortened to I love you more. And so she took that and she ran with that. And the moon is significant too, because it was a big bright moon on September 22nd, and it felt like something that connected us, Tyler and I. So that is in that piece as well. The moon has been significant because God speaks in many ways. He speaks through his word, he speaks audibly, he speaks through timing, but he also speaks through nature and sunsets and skies, and they all became very important eventually. And the moon kind of connected me. I don't know where Tyler really is, but as a child, he learned something about the moon, and so that's why that's in there. Yeah, but there is hope, and we wanted to use it to give hope, so that's important. We want people to realize that. And we agreed to music because music was so important to Tyler, because he was an accomplished violinist, and he loved music, and music was his passion. So what better way to share Tyler with the world? Because all the world knew was the headline, Rutgers student, etc. And then they filled in some of the gaps with lots of wrong information. So you really can't believe everything you read. I just want to stress that. Because if there's nothing to write about, they will make up stories to write it. So I must admit, at first, I wanted somebody to know about Tyler. I wanted the world to know about Tyler, but it was bittersweet because I also wanted to hold on to him because it felt like the world was talking about him anyway. But I was like, but they don't know him. And I kind of wanted to hold on to him, but then I realized I had to let him go. And that was letting him go with this piece of music. So hope, and let it stir you to action. Don't just listen tonight. Let it call you to action. Because we know that when you talk about statistics, it'll talk to your head, and hopefully you'll think logically about things. And we started a whole foundation based on stories so that it could change people's hearts. But I think there's nothing more than music that can reach down into someone's soul and really instill change. And I hope this will reach into your soul so that you can change and go out into the world and do good. And for us, it's following the foundation and on social media, as well as what you're going to say.
And I think the foundation is a good example of hope and action. I would encourage you to look at the Tyler Clementi Foundation.org online. And in the lobby, we have a table with resources. There are armbands for the TylerClementi.org Foundation. There's other information out there. We also have local resources. University hospitals, along with Children's Mercy, have provided resources out there. They both have clinics that serve LGBT youth and their families. And so I would encourage you to check those out. They're available to people.
One more thing?
Yes.
With the wristbands, just in case, I mean, you're welcome to take one and put it on your wrist. I hope you will take it, though, and at the very least, put it by your laptop and use it as a reminder when you go to push that send button to take a breath and reread what you're writing and make sure you send out kindness and goodness and build someone up and don't tear someone down with your words. So just put it by your laptop, because I know not every adult wants to wear a plastic band, but youth do. But please take it home and put it by your computer. Sorry.
No, that's great. We're going to take a collection, and tonight it will go to support the work of the foundation. If you're like me, many times you come to events, there's no cash in your pocket. There are cards in your pocket, but no cash. On the back of the program this evening, there is a QR code, and you can scan that either at this point or later when you've gone home or another day, and that will take you to their website, and you'll find a place that you can make a donation to the foundation. And we certainly appreciate that. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Break a leg.
Stephen Schwartz, the celebrated composer of Wicked, and one of the composers of tonight's Tyler Suite, said this: "The story of Tyler Clementi, the story of the loss of one young man who clearly had so much to offer the world and its impact on those who loved him, reminds us that every life lost because of bullying and bigotry is specific individual tragedy."
I'm standing at the edge. I cannot wait to be a part of all that lies ahead. I've been dreaming of this day, and now it has It's time to take a giant breath, to stretch my wings and fly. There are songs you haven't heard, and music yet to play. I have melodies to sing, and words I long to say. How I want to play my song, where arms are opened wide, in a place where I belong, a world that's large and kind, that's large and kind. The world's a very narrow bridge. I'm standing at the edge. One final moment on the stage.
I can ride the unicycle, I can play the violin, I can do the two together, fiddle while I take a spin. People say how very clever, was it difficult to learn? Is it skill or is it magic? Do you ever crash and burn? There's a thread that they can't see, running through the fiddle wheel and me. 3 and 1 and 1 and 3. Running through the fiddle. See, I got a thread that they can see. From the fateful day I saw it in the storefront window pane, I could swear that unicycle was emblazoned on my brain. But I found you have to pedal half a mile to go a yard. So the trick is acting happy while your legs are pumping hard. There's a thread that they can see, running through the fiddle wheel and me. 3 and 1 and 1 and 3. Running through the fiddle. See, I got a thread that they can see. No more cheering, no more laughter, if I break my violin. And imagine me right after, picking up a frame, a neck, a pin. This could be a big disaster, I can see me wiping out. So I pedal even faster, like I never had a doubt. There's a thread that they can see, going through the fiddle and me. 3 and 1 and 1 and 3, rising up above the trees, above the clouds, above them. There's a thread that they can't see, running through the fiddle wheel and me, rising up above the trees, above the clouds, to heaven from me.
He was just a boy, he was my son, the last of 3, my youngest one. He could make me laugh and sometimes cry. Now he's left me here to wonder why. Would I keep still in his tears? We'll never reach his hopes and dreams. Why did he leave this world so soon? What was his crime? What did he do? He was just a boy like you, with his whole life before him too. More in common than he showed, the boy you never tried to know. More than a child, not yet a man, or wise enough to understand. If you had only been his friend, how different things might have been. The consequences will unfold in ways that you could not have known. The world will never have the joy it might have known from this one boy. He was just a boy, he'll always be, locked away in time at just 18. I will never have the chance to see the man my boy would have grown to be. I would do something well, then you would do it better. And I'd be thinking, damn it, can't you give it a rest? I'm gonna teach us best, and you'll be even better. But a little pest has to be the best. If I would like a mile, you'd write to edition. When you would do it on a unicycle, what's more, somehow you had to win every competition. I stopped keeping score after all before. But you were my brother, and that's just what brothers do. You're my brother, and I guess it's always true. Anyone else you stop, but a brother you just shove. You're my brother. Tyler, because of you. Tyler, what I won't do is cower on some dark gloomy shelf. Tyler, you set me free. Brother, you made me see that it's okay to leave myself.
I thought I'd lose my mind if I heard one more show tune. If I had to endure another Bacharach attack. Or when they passed Ravel, which I swear had no tune. But now looking back, now I feel the lack.
Sharing more than a last name. You're my brother, in so many ways the same. of course, it was hallucinatory, but anyone with broadband and a memory could guess how rapidly the story would respond as allegory, not a story, but a story in the capital S, a capital S, which made its central character both more and less. The Tyler Show, pointless to resent it, blame Warhol for the way things are. The Tyler Show, when boy-specific trauma, at least as they present it, becomes a cable drama, administered by Obama. The Tyler Show, to know how well they meant it doesn't make it less bizarre. Ellen, Oprah, Henderson, NBC, CNN, Ernest, thoughtful, a little homiletic, New York Times, a shock of shocks, even to a friendly Fox. Wholly sympathetic, who knew? And she knows it's after something profound, but she can't help what she's feeling. She mutes the sound and
a mist of silver from the moon through the window of my room, the shadow of two sycamores reaching out across the floor, and in the half light of my mind I reach out and try to find the memory of your voice again, talk with you as I did then.
I hear you say,
goodbye that way. On that gray September day. But honestly, I don't recall if we said those lines at all. If words could bring you back to me, I'd say them more insistently. The time forever closed the door. Somehow I love you even more. I hear you say, I love you. I love you. I say I love you more. The way we always parted 1,000 times before. Every time we said goodbye or good night at the door, it was I love you. I love you more. I wonder if you realized you were perfect in my eyes. If only you were here with me and things had turned out differently. I'd say I love you more. The way we always parted 1,000 times before. Every time we said goodbye or good night at the door. I love you. I love you. I am standing on a narrow bridge across a great divide. It soars above a deep abyss, the narrow span of life. Demanded more than I had thought, too much to go it alone. With every triumph came defeat. Even love itself was bittersweet. But standing here, I hesitate at a choice only I can make. We
those who trail behind, give a hand to those who fall. Stop to help the one out on the edge. Carry those who can't go on. For the greatest distance I can find is the one between your heart and mine. There is no wall, nothing separates us at all. When we walk together, it is plenty wide for all of us to walk it step for step, stride for stride. Though the bridge may seem narrow, if we walk together toward tomorrow, it is plenty
Normally, at the end of our time together in this congregation, we speak words while extinguishing our chalice. It marks the end of our time. But tonight, our flame will continue to burn. We have spent our time together acknowledging difficult, saddening realities. May this flame call us forward to build a more loving world. Tyler's voice sang for us this evening. How I want to play my song where arms are open wide in a place where I belong, a world that's large and kind. It is up to us to be that world, to keep our hearts large and our actions kind. Go forth and live into joy.